Our topic this morning is Live in God's Love. And Yogananda Ji has some rather strong words on this topic. He wrote, "Reflect always that you belong to no one, and no one belongs to you. You are on this earth for but a little while. Your family claims you as its own, but if you die and are reborn next door, would they recognize you? Your friends claim you as theirs, but if you cease in some way to please them, even through some trivial misunderstanding, how many of them will remain loyal to you? People say that they love others, but in fact, most people love themselves, for they love others insofar as others please them. Only our love for God is ever fully requited. Indeed, far more than requited, for God understands us when all others misunderstand. God loves us when others turn against us. God remembers us when everyone forgets us. We are God's, and God alone for all eternity." Radha was a great devotee of Krishna, as we know, but once she fell briefly into delusion, into the delusion of personal love, that she possessed Krishna. And one day, the two of them were walking together, and she pretended to be very tired and asked Krishna, would he carry her? She didn't think she could make it alone. And he did so, and she was enjoying this so much. And then suddenly she found herself alone, and Krishna had just disappeared. As long as she felt possessive, Krishna was nowhere for her. Realizing her mistake, she asked for forgiveness, and Krishna reappeared again as if nothing was happening and continued walking with her. And when our love, to the extent that it becomes possessive, the object of our love may just disappear. And if we're not anchored in the divine, we feel that we've lost everything. In the world, you're told not to put all of your eggs in one basket, not to invest all your money in one stock, or depend entirely on one plan or one person. If we depend on one person, one way or another, eventually they will leave us. And who will never let us down? Only God. Sri Yukteswar tells us, human behavior is ever unreliable until it is anchored in God. When Yogananda Ji was a small boy, his mother was the center of his young life. And when he was only 11 years old, she died. And he suffered very much for a couple of years, and then he was healed and was able to love people that much more, because the Divine Mother came to him in vision and told him, "Always have I loved you, ever shall I love you." He realized that it was the Divine Mother all along, who loved him through all the mothers in all of his lifetimes. And he would never lose that love of the Divine Mother. And does this mean that we can't find lasting love in this lifetime? We can, because there is a bridge from here to the divine. Yoganandaji said that we can't choose our relatives. He said charmingly, if they're bad, we can't throw them out. But we can choose our friends. And we can choose the company of high-minded souls. And maybe they're also seeking God. Maybe they found God. We can choose the company of the Guru and the divine love that the Guru has to offer us. When Hanuman ripped open his own chest, there in his heart were reigning Rama and Sita. And he was the perfect disciple, ever focused on Lord Rama. Likewise, Swami Kriyananda dedicated every waking moment to serving his Guru and tried his best to be the best disciple that he could, so that every word he spoke, every thought he thought would be that of the Guru's as much as he possibly could. This is that bridge between here and the divine. At the end of the Gita, Sri Krishna describes Arjuna as dearly beloved by me. And we are all just as dearly beloved to God as Arjuna was. And to feel that love, we need to have a pure heart that is ready to receive it. We need to empty our heart of every obstacle that is filling it up, pride and selfishness and indifference, and hold our empty cup up high to receive God's grace, to receive that divine love. And Krishna says also further, absorb yourself in me, be wholly devoted to me, worship and bow to me alone. So shall you undoubtedly reach me. This I promise you faithfully, for you are dear to me. Forsaking all other dharmas, remember me alone. I will free you from all sin, even from that of not fulfilling other lesser duties. Do not grieve. It's beautiful, reassuring, loving words. Do not grieve. Krishna said to Draupadi, why don't you practice the yoga meditation techniques that I've taught you? And she said, I would love to do that, but I can't take my mind away from you long enough in order to practice these techniques. And Krishna simply smiled. Of course, correct practice of meditation includes deep devotion. But once there is so much energy rising up in our spine, then we no longer have any need of any technique. Then we're doing the highest duty, simply loving God. Yoganandaji had a direct disciple. His name was Leo Cox. And one day the two of them were walking together. And Leo started feeling so much love for his guru. He was overwhelmed with this love. And he kept mentally saying, I love you, and offering himself. And Master stopped walking, and he turned and looked at him. And he said, oh, Leo, when you're like this, I can just take your hand and lead you directly to God. And he can do this with all of us. If we just love, he can lead us directly to God. Bless you all.
You know how Keshava just ended? He just said, take my hand, Leo, I can lead you directly to God. And that is what the great ones do. That's why the avatars are born. We're celebrating Ram's birthday today. Avatars are born. God is born on earth in order to lead us back to our home in Him. And it's so wonderful that we celebrate the great, great gift that God gives to us. Every time a great soul is born, an avatar, one that's already realized God. And we have Ram and Krishna and Christ and Buddha and these great masters on the altar. And we're just so infinitely blessed to be associated with them all. And, they come, they have achieved the freedom that we are looking for. And they come with this power of God's love in their heart. And, they say, do this, follow me, listen to my words, here's these techniques you can do, love God in your heart, purify your heart of all other desires and attachments, and just think of me, and you will find me, you'll be one with me. And he gives us these instructions, and we say, I'm not sure if I'm ready to be that good. I'm not sure if I'm ready to give up what I have right now, because, I've got a house, I've got kids, I've got a car, and, I'm not sure that I'm ready for that much love. And Yogananda would tell a story about this frog who lived on the shore of a vast lake. And he could hear, just like over the sand dune, just like all these frogs' voices. And he said, I'm all by myself on this vast lake. What are these frogs doing over here? So he hopped over the sand dune and saw like all these frogs just crowded in a little teeny puddle, just like jumping on top of each other just to get to a little bit of water. And he said, oh my goodness, what are you doing all here? Just look right over the sand dune is a gigantic lake, plenty of room for all of us. Please come. They're like, no, it can't be possible. This is where we live. This is what we do. This is our puddle. And we're very happy here. This is where we've always been. And so, perfect example of had they just followed the frog over, they would have seen this vast, infinite lake and had this life of bliss. But no, they instead want to crowd and be on top of each other and argue with each other and vie for space. And it's the masters come, the great ones come, and they shine so much light and so much love that it's hard for us to receive it. Our cup is not that big, our heart is not that open to receive that much love. And so when this much light and love come into a planet like ours, of Maya, of duality, then we say, no, it's too much light. There must be something wrong with them. You must have bad intentions. And then we persecute that great soul, or we crucify them, or we bring lawsuits against them, or, whatever we can do, the darkness will try to snuff out the light. And so they come again. They come again. The avatar comes again whenever virtue is declining and adharma's on the rise. I will be born again. And why do they keep coming? It's the power of God's love. And that power can deliver us from delusion. That power can liberate us. And we just need to tune into that power and be open. We have a ceremony here at Ananda where the disciple says, I seek purification by the grace of God. And in the ceremony, the master says, open your heart to me and I will take charge of your life. So that's the kind of faith and trust that we need to have in these great masters that come again and again for us. Will we allow them to take charge of our lives? Or we want to keep in charge of our lives? No, I think I've got it. Thank you very much. I don't need your help. And when a particular disciple of Yogananda, answered the question from Master, do you love me unconditionally? And Dr. Lewis said, yes, I do. He said, good, now I can take charge of your life. So it's sort of like we have to love God unconditionally, love the Guru, have faith that their love will guide us to overcome delusion. One moment in the company of this kind of love will be our raft over the ocean of delusion. And what does that mean, letting him take charge of our life? So it means I will perhaps show you where you need to improve. I may need to show you where you're attached, where your misguided desires are, where your own self-limitations are. You see yourself as so small. You see yourself as so, with so many faults. You see yourself as limited by your job or your ego identification, or by your particular time and place and religion and culture. You see yourself so fixed. And yet you need to open your heart and understand that the power of my love can show you that you are infinite, that you are eternal. And so how does he show us that? He shows us through tests. He said, Master said, if you argue for your limitations, you'll be able to keep them. So the Guru comes and shows us, this limitation is not serving you. So he brings up situation after situation after situation where you bump up against that limitation, and it gives you pain. Oh, not this again. Not this again. I thought I had overcome this. But he shows us yet again that through our own pain, that we have to put out the energy and rise above this obstacle that keeps coming again and again. We have to open our heart and let his love transform the situation. Say, no, I can't. I have to be in control. I have to make this decision. I have to do it my own way. Then the Guru says, fine. I thought you called me to come help, and he'll let us be. But if we say, yes, I'm willing to surrender this limitation, surrender this anger, surrender this negativity, surrender this jealousy, emotion, whatever negative emotion is, I'm done with it and I want to be free of it. And open our heart and let him come in and just take that emotion and, transform it to devotion within us. He will give us tests. The story of the disciple who went to his guru, who was a very eccentric guru, and when the disciples came, he would throw rocks at them or bricks at them. And some of the disciples said, what is this? I'll never come back to this guru again. And then the devoted devoted disciple goes up and picks up this big rock and says, thank you for this gift. Thank you for this gift, Master. He goes home and he puts the gift up on his altar and just said, thank you, thank you. Just my guru is guiding me. He's teaching me something I may not understand, but he's teaching me. And the next morning he sees that the rock has turned to gold. So, the Guru is constantly giving us gold, and we're like, I don't want that lesson right now. I can't handle that lesson. And the more we grow in spirituality, the more we grow closer to God, the more difficult our tests will become, because we can handle more. And how can we achieve liberation without overcoming the most difficult tests? I mean, look at the avatars. Look what they have to overcome. And And so it's like Swami Kriyananda would use the example of a stained glass window. You know, as we get closer and closer to God, the light shines through brighter and brighter and brighter. But you can see, if there's a crack in the stained glass window, you can see that crack. Or if there's still a dark color, that dark color shows more. So, you know, sometimes we see great spiritual people, but they still have a flaw. They still have a character defect. And sometimes people might look at those people and say, see, you know, that's what spirituality will get you. Look at, they still have this flaw. You know, after all this time on the spiritual path, they still say that, they still do that. And it can disillusion a lot of people. It's a tool of the darkness to take people from the light. But if souls think of all the samskars we have, all the vrittis, all the karma that is in our chakras. If there's just a few seeds left that haven't come out, I mean, these are probably, you know, we're almost on the verge of being Jivan Mukta. And yet, you know, there's one or two things left. That light is shining so through. And here, we're focusing on the crack. Look at that crack. Look at that crack. So life is so much what we focus on. Do we focus on the light, or do we focus on the crack? And in our lives, are we focusing on that love of the Guru that is just flowing to us all the time? Always whispering guidance to us, always loving us. Or are we going to focus on, but things aren't perfect. I have this thing, it's, you know, I can't control this outcome, this event, so I'm going to be so upset and I'm going to be so angry, even though perhaps an hour earlier you had a blissful meditation. I actually find myself going through this challenge right now. You know, there's a situation I can't necessarily control, and I must admit that one of my major chakras, karmic challenges, is controlling things, trying to control things too much. And there's a situation I cannot control, and it's really bothering me. And so I go back and forth during my day of just being sort of in bliss because I'm trying so hard to feel God's presence and to rise above it, and I'm really trying hard. And then, you know, we talk about the battle of Kurukshetra, the battle of our daily life is fighting this battle. Is the energy going to go up towards God, to our true soul nature, or is it going to sink back down to where you came from, your old habits, your old tendencies, negativity, separation? And during the day, frankly, I'm going up and down. I'm doing both. I'm fighting that battle. And when I'm feeling God's love in my heart, God's peace in my heart, and I feel His presence, and I know He's there, there's a part of me that's like, how could I ever not want to be in this state? How could I ever forget this moment? You know, but this is Maya. And then we walk out the door and we forget. And so this is the spiritual path. 2 steps forward, 1 step back. 2 steps forward, 1 back. And they come. The avatars come. Rams come. He also went through this. And he was victorious. Our gurus went through this. They are victorious. They said, but this is what you need to do. So they give us 1,000 things to do. It's like, we can't do all that. Yogananda said, you do 1% of what I've given you, you will find God. So we need to give ourselves a little bit of a break because we are fighting the battle. Thank God we're fighting the battle, and we didn't walk away from the battle discouraged because we saw a crack in our friends or we saw a crack in ourselves. And we fight that battle. And, you know, I had a very good friend who went through a difficult time very recently, and it sort of wasn't his fault, and it was like an administrative detail that somebody else did wrong, and suddenly they were hugely inconvenienced, and it sort of changed the path of their week or their month and what was going to happen. But they told me that not once during this whole ordeal, there were officials involved. It was very, very complicated official kind of thing. He said during the interviews, during the discussions, during the recordings, during all of this, it was as if Master was there with grace saying, are you going to remember me? Are you going to remember this bubble of grace and peace that's all around you right now? Or are you going to like freak out and get angry and demand justice? and he just stayed in that bubble of grace. And he realized that the whole entire ordeal had been orchestrated just for him, so he could choose to just remain in that bubble of grace and not get off of his center. And that is a victory for him, that he will never, ever be free. I mean, he will never lose. When we have those moments of grace, when God comes to us in a realization, in a meditation, in an opportunity to love others, that's with us eternally. It changes us, and it's with us eternally. And so this person is so grateful for this major challenge that came. I mean, there's like stuff coming up that's really difficult too, just because of this thing. It's like he can put it on like a cloak, this bubble of grace, and remember, this is when Master came to me. This is when he was so clearly showing me that this is where I need to be, just with him, and forget everything else. And, the things that we need to sacrifice or to give up in order to have that grace are things that are so temporary, that are so, actually, they're just small details of our lives, things that we think are so important at some point, but really, they'll be gone like this. And what will be left? God's love. What will be left? The vibration and the grace of the Guru. And so we need to make those choices. Remember that disciple of Lahiri Mahashaya who said that he gave up a few paltry rupees for the infinite bliss of heaven and of God and of Divine Mother. And so really, the other thing that came from the Western scriptures, from the Bible, Christ said, where your treasure is, there your heart is. So we have to ask ourselves all the time, where is our treasure? What do we value? What do I think about? Where am I heading? What is my thoughts? Where are my thoughts directed every day? Where am I putting my time? Where am I putting my energy? Where am I putting my resources? Because that's where your treasure is, and that is where your heart is. So that's a good thing to introspect, because we waste a lot of time. I waste a lot of time. And I just, I know that I can use that time thinking of God more. I can use that time loving God more and loving others more, loving others. So the avatars come when with God's power of love, they love all of us. They love their disciples, yes, but they love everyone unconditionally. Master says, those who love others selflessly are already well on the way to learning the secret of divine love. All they need to do is direct that love upward to God. He said, never neglect to do whatever you can for yourself in the forms of others. To know spirit, you must become spirit, finding yourself manifested through the bodies and minds of all living beings. Make your love vast and deep, enough to contain all beings. And Masters chant, I am the bubble, make me the sea. Change me from being the little individual ego into the sea of spirit, and I can receive all my brothers and sisters in the love of my heart. So, great ones have brought us many, many gifts. We, in great gratitude, bow to Lord Rama today, Krishna, the great ones, our masters, for the love that they have shown us by incarnating again and again to show us the power of their love.